Francisco Juvenile Hall and a conversation workshop that I was leading. Tupac's death kind of spurred me to create a magazine. That was in September of '96. As you flip through it, I mean, there's plenty to look at. And if you just bear with me for a few minutes, I'd like to share my story and a little bit of my story. And I want to make this a conversation. I hope you have questions for us. My colleague Kevin has his story he wants to share with you all today as well. So you want us to sit down here? Okay.
You're running the show.
Yeah, right. I just. All right. I'm used to walking around, so forgive me for the pace.
Pace back and forth.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. All right. All right. Have any of you heard of the Beat Within? Anyone? Okay. All right. Births in San Francisco, YGC, aka Juvenile Hall, '96, as I just shared with you. Prior to creating this magazine, I was a social worker, and I worked in the public defender's office doing alternative sentencing proposals, meaning that I would go to court on behalf of the young person who was fighting his or her case, and work with them in helping them find an alternative to what the district attorney or his or her probation officer was recommending to the judge. And through that work, I really got to know the young people. I mean, really building a trusting relationship as they were going through the challenges of having their freedom taken away, worrying about looking at lots of years in the California Youth Authority, prison, group home, rehab, wherever the possibility of that recommendation of the courts was recommending. And as you get to know people, people begin to open up, right? I mean, we build relationships. We pride ourselves on relationship building. And as I'm doing the work as a social worker, again, the relationship really came into play to the point where when I'm working with a young person, they say, hey, Dave, you want to check out my journal? You want to check out the letter I'm writing my girlfriend or my boyfriend? Can you help me write a letter to the judge? Check out this art I'm making for my mother for Mother's Day. And I was blown away by the art. I was blown away by the writing. And I knew there was a lot more to these young people who were inside the juvenile hall than the alleged crime they committed, the alleged affiliations they're from. I know these young people, just like you all, have hopes, dreams, loves, fears, hates. And I felt when I was in the courtroom, that side of them wasn't being seen. It was strictly the police reports, the psych evals, the education evaluations, whatever, all the various professional reports, and not the true voice of the young people. So I kind of just tucked this idea in the back of my head that maybe I could create a forum for young people one day to tell their truths, share their story. Several years later, that opportunity kicks in, and that's, again, where I started these writing workshops inside San Francisco Juvenile Hall. I went for my dream. I followed my dream. I challenged the system to give me access into the juvenile hall to create conversation/writing workshops. Was I a certified teacher? No. Did I have a curriculum? No. Did I have a budget for any of this? No. I just had my heart, my dream, and my idea of what I wanted to do to help this population. And what blew my mind is when I presented it to the chief probation officer at the time, the presiding judge, what their answer was, when do you want to start? So I started the following week. The following week I started. I stumbled. I fumbled my way through what I was doing. I was trying to figure out what I was creating here. I would go in with cookies and pizza. I would go in with my favorite books and share entries. Or we talk about the news of the day. We do surveys. And I was playing with this template. Again, 9 months later, death of Tupac kicks it off, and I realized how powerful Tupac's death affected all of us. And we had the young people write about it. I had the young people write about it. And I was so moved by what they had to say that I went back to my office and started typing up all the writings. And just in passing, in a conversation with a colleague of mine, I told her what I wanted to do, and she said, why don't we create a publication? I said, yeah, let's create a publication. Yeah, let's call it The Beat Within. Okay, let's call it The Beat Within. Let's commit to being a weekly publication of writing and art from inside San Francisco Juvenile Hall. Great, let's do that. The birth of The Beat. First issue was 6 pages. Every week we showed up. I would come back with writings, type it up, publish it in the magazine. Then there was art, then there was flows, then there was poetry, all these various ways of expression. Several months later, Alameda County comes knocking on the door. I didn't know how to say no. I took on the juvenile hall. Here we are almost 20 years later in Alameda County Juvenile Hall up there on 150th. doing the same thing that we're doing in San Francisco. Several months later, again, Marin County, San Mateo, all our neighboring counties started getting involved. So as you flip through this little magazine, or what, I don't know if it's little to you, but a 60-page magazine that comes out twice a month now, you'll see the various counties that are contributing to the publication on page 3. Santa Cruz, Solano, San Mateo, San Bernardino, Los Angeles, and we have some outsiders who join us from New Mexico, Portland, Oregon, sometimes Washington, D.C., Missoula, Montana. I'm actually on Monday flying out to New Orleans to start the Beat Within. And their juvenile hall, they reached out to us. So, not rocket science, but there's very little there's really nothing like it when it comes to a magazine that brings all these voices together under one umbrella. And that umbrella is the Beat Within. So every week we go into the juvenile halls. We present several writing prompts. We do a quote of the week. We discuss as a class to the young people who find themselves within the walls of the system and get them and challenge them to create. It doesn't come easy all the time. Sure, a lot of the young people are looking at many, many, many years in the system for one bad night, for a poor choice. And sometimes it takes weeks, months to build a trusting relationship for that young person to say, okay, I'm ready to tell my truth. I'm ready to talk about whatever, the abuses I dealt with, or the challenges of my drug addiction, or the struggles with my anger. Or I'm in it till the wheels fall off, and I'm Bonnie and Clyde, ride or die. Get that as well. I mean, everybody has different wake-ups, or hits different bottoms, I guess. But as you flip through this, you're going to see all those types of pieces within the magazine. And also within the magazine, you'll see that we respond to every single piece, which is really, really important. You want, as you know, as writers, as students, you want feedback. Even if it's a few sentences, encouraging feedback, particularly for this population, right? They're already being told every day, all day, how to live their lives. 2-minute showers, whatever, 3-minute phone calls, program this, back to your cell for several hours, then lunch, then back to your cell, then back to school. I mean, all day long. So when we come in, we're a community program. So hopefully they see us as a kind of a safe place to share, to check in, to participate in. And yeah, for the most part, there's not a lot of options in juvenile hall. So the option may be for a group of 10 to 20 to 30 kids who are locked up when they participate with the Beat. You either participate in our program or you stay in your cell. So obviously everybody's going to come out. And sure, not everybody likes to write. And that's all right, you know. I mean, as long as you show some respect to your peers and hang out, you can hang out with us. Sometimes people can barely put a sentence together. We find ourselves writing the pieces for the young person. Because in the end, they want to be published. In the end, they know this goes from Washington, D.C. to Hawaii throughout the United States. And their stories are being heard. And we encourage them to see themselves as teachers. Yeah, your situation is totally messed up, totally screwed up with the journey you've been on up to this point. And we hope it gets better. But maybe you can teach from this pain that maybe will help some other person from falling into that trap. The trap of pulling the gun, using the heroin, whatever it is, the violence. The not going to school. How many young people do we know that don't go to school and end up in juvenile hall, right? Or they commit one crime at 13, 14 years old, and they get out on probation, but they constantly violate. And it's that one crime. Now they're 17 years old for the crime they committed at 13, 14. They're still in that web of the system. But we watch them grow up. And we work with them, and that's the key through. I mean, I think, again, we pride ourselves on building these amazing relationships. And never to see the program end at the top of the hour. Sure, we come every week. We do 50 weeks of programming in the various juvenile halls. The hour ends, and I always tell the young people, you know, don't feel that you have to stop writing because we're leaving. You know, keep writing, sharing your work if you're going off to the next step in this journey or returning home, and that they do. And I can't keep up with the demand. We receive probably 400 to 500 letters a month from past contributors, and those I've never laid eyes on, who want to connect with our program and want to share and want to teach and want to, I'll say, save a life or share their art through poetry and the various pieces that we publish in our magazine. If you flip through the back pages of our magazine, it's a section called the Beat Without. And the Beat Without section is predominantly men and women who are in the adult system. Some of them are past writers that we met in the hall, but many are folks that we've never laid eyes on. And those writers are some of our best teachers, kind of the backbone of the publication. Been there, done that. They're dealing with the politics of prison. They're dealing with all the various programs in prison. They're dealing with whatever, struggling with maybe never ever getting out. And there's a lot to share on that end, and I feel like I'm just rapid fire here on y'all, so forgive me. But I really want to make time to do everything that I kind of set out in my head to do today with you all. Any questions before I introduce my colleague here? Because he fits right into what we did in the back here, the beat without. Okay. I'm going to hand this over to Kevin, because Kevin's story is, I think, just is incredibly important, and it's really a privilege to be sitting alongside of him today, given I met him 20 years ago when I first started the Beat Within, but I never laid eyes on him or shook his hand until like a month ago. Kevin. All right.
First of all, I want to say that it's an honor and privilege to be here, being able to speak to you guys, share my story, share the Beat story, the Beat Without story, Beat Within story. Everything that David has touched on, I kind of, in my mind, I was going through the different links that I have to the different subjects that he was speaking on. And I'll start from the beginning. When we met, it was as a result of me being incarcerated. I reached out to Dave because I saw a Beat Within article that was published in the San Francisco Chronicle. I said, man, and this is me sitting in prison, Salinas Valley State Prison, right next door to Soledad. I was thinking to myself, I want to write for them. I got some stories. I want to express myself in this fashion, so I reached out to him. Long story short, started writing for the Beat. And he alluded to this fact, but I'll speak to it more poignantly. I just was released from prison 2 months ago. As a matter of fact, today is 7 weeks, Thursday. No, today's Friday. Yesterday was 7 weeks. That was after 23 years of incarceration. How many of you guys in here, or guys and gals, are 16 years old? 17? 17. I was 17 when I went to juvenile hall for a crime I committed in the East Bay. I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, born in Frisco, grew up in San Lorenzo, Union City. Took a life. I want to be totally transparent. I took a life. At 17, I was going to James Logan High School, caught up in the foolishness of my life, thought I ran the world. That was totally not reality. I'll just put it like that. That was not reality. But that was the only way I knew how to express myself. I was too weak in my own being to be able to express myself just face to face, which is why I found avenues to be able to show my value to people and to my friends, and that was through material goods. That was through having money in my pocket. And I didn't fulfill those needs in good ways. It led me to stealing, to robbery, to worse and worse things. So that's just a brief synopsis of that bad road I traveled down. And it started pretty early. You know, I was very much in my shell all the way up till my incarceration. Didn't know how to express myself, which is why the Beat was so important to me. Because in juvenile hall, I reached that point after my incarceration, after my first day of juvenile hall, where I said, man, I got to find a different way. This is, locked up in a room, that didn't cut it for me. So that was my awakening, that first day in juvenile hall, April 14th, 1993, where the foundation of my previous life began to crack. I began to at least ask myself questions, at least say to myself, man, this is not it. I would never ask myself those questions prior to April 14th. But you know what? That was my breaking point. So I learned to express myself through words, and a lot of that was in the form of letters to my parents, to loved ones, my girlfriend at the time, trying to express myself in letters. And so when the beat presented itself with an opportunity to express myself in a published way, in a way where it was very tangible. This wasn't just letters I was sending to loved ones back and forth and, responding to. This was my feelings on paper and how I've grown and what I learned. At that time, it had only been 3 years. My incarceration was in its infancy, compared to the 23 years that I served. I was a juvenile lifer, if you guys are familiar with that term. I bring this is something I keep in my wallet just for effect. For some people, this brings it home. This is a prison ID. I don't place any value in this, but this is just to show you what a reality that incarceration, that time I served, that crime I committed, which caused me to serve that time, how real that was and is for so many still. Because although I'm out and I'm getting my feet under me and getting a foundation and working and doing all those things, there are people who suffer still and are in prison, not a physical prison, but imprisoned by the actions that I committed. So that is a reminder of that right here. That was kind of brief, but I want to open it up to you guys. If you guys have any questions, I'm here. What I like to say, and let me say this as well. For the last 10 years, this is aside from writing for the Beat, but I was in what's called the Youth Diversion Program, Folsom State Prison. And that is where roughly 2 weeks out of every month, kids are brought into the prison to where we listen to them, maybe do a little counseling, just try to get to what some of their core issues may be. And it's not to say we were there to fix them, but a lot of ways they taught us some things. So it was more of a partnership, I like to say. It wasn't like we were Dr. Phil or anything like that. But I kind of think this may be an extension of that, because I know that growing up as a kid, all of us have our issues, to a certain degree. All of us have those questions, those needs to fit in, whatever the case may be. Been there and done that. So this has been a dream of mine, to be able to speak in front of an audience such as yourselves for over 20 years now. Because this is what I love to do, is give back. And I had been giving back within the walls for all these years. Now I feel I'm extremely blessed to be able to be sort of a resource for you guys, let's say. Like I said earlier, I'm not here to say you guys got problems, I'm here to fix you, nothing like that. Consider me as a resource. If you guys want to ask me any questions, ask us any questions, and we're all ears. Beat was and is very much a part of my therapy, what I went through to get to from where I was at 17 years old to where I am today at 40 years old, as far as my maturity is concerned. Being able to express myself through this means was fantastic. Again, at 17 years old, I didn't feel like I had a voice in the world. My voice was through doing whatever it took to put money in my pocket. So that's what spoke for me at that point in my life. Having a car, having cleanest outfits, having whatever it was, that was my voice. So when all that was taken from me, let me put it this way, when I gave all that up as a result of committing my crime and being incarcerated in juvenile hall, I gave up all those rights to a life out here, to anything, stripped down. literally and figuratively. I was stripped down in juvenile hall, and I had to be who I was, just me. So the beat provided me was a big part in providing me that opportunity to express myself. And from that point, as I began to learn a lot more about myself and grow and mature as a person, I was able to help people out as well. And just speaking about your experience, man, it doesn't have to be anything therapeutic per se, like you're helping people with their issues, but in essence, by telling your story, you are helping somebody with their issues, because although we're all unique, we all have similar stories. And your story, what you went through, might be the same as what you're going through. My story might be the same as your story. It just manifests itself in different ways. It looks different on the surface, but at the core, we're all aching for the same thing. So I hope that answers your question. That was very therapeutic to me, and I know by reading these stories in here, and even having gotten to know some of these people just through their stories, reading them, some of these people have written hundreds of stories. They're speaking through these pages. So I'm thoroughly convinced that being able to have that opportunity to write, see their work get published, is very therapeutic.
Truly is an anchor and a lifeline for a lot of young people, as well as our elders. And as Kevin said, we learn so much from the stories. And that's what we want our writers to see, who contribute. That they, again, I'll repeat myself, see themselves as teachers. I like to think when I go in and lead a writing workshop that I go in as a student and I put it all on you to teach me. I'm the one I'll be asking the questions. I want to learn from you. And what you read in the piece, what you read in the beat within is, I think it's incredibly dark writings, painful writings, but I also find a lot of inspiration in these voices as well. I hope some of you have taken a few minutes to flip through it and maybe read a couple entries. I'd love to hear some of your feedback in regards to like what you've read or what you think thus far of the magazine.
Can I ask you guys, is this a writing class? It is, huh? What is your guys' general feeling about writing and how it makes you feel? No specifics, just, may I speak to that before another comment? What's your first name? Marco. That's very important right there. As you were saying that, you can create what you think, and you can kind of make it your own because it's you writing, right? So many people, and me included to an extent, really uses the avenue of writing, especially in prison, of just escaping from the reality of what they've gone through, what they were going through at the moment. That's very important right there.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I thought I was Shakespeare, No. At the time, at any given moment, I believe, I'm a good writer, and, but everything is relevant to where they are at that point in their life, So some of the things I had written in 1996, when I go back and look at them, and I've read over my stuff many times, and I think, man, what was I thinking with that punctuation, with that sentence structure? But at the time, I'm seeing some laughs. So you must drill your students on sentence structure. But yeah, it's, there's growth in all of us. As longer we live, the more we engage in these types of activities, speaking just of writing specifically, you're going to evolve. You're going to evolve greatly. You're not just the structure, but the way you tell stories, the way you convey what you feel inside to how it comes across on paper, the way you proof things. I don't know if you guys go through a lot of proofing drills, but man, what I learned is proofing is so important to really learning how it is, how close you are on paper to how you feel on the inside. I think that's very important.
When you were in prison, did you think that you would ever not change as a person, and just kind of stay the same person you were when you first came?
The short answer is no. I was incarcerated, like I said, April 14th, 1993, and it was within that, I don't know how many hours, but I know it was within that first day where I was in it's kind of, I don't know what they refer to it as, but it's a lockup cell. You're in there for 72 hours, no interaction with anybody. You don't have any sheets on your bed because they think you may fashion something to hurt yourself with. You're pretty much stripped down to just a t-shirt and boxers. Within that first day, I remember literally telling myself, what the hell did you do, Kevin? And it wasn't that I didn't know what I did to land myself in juvenile hall, but it was more in the sense of, Kevin, how the hell did you get to this point in your life? But I was literally telling myself, what the hell did you do, Kevin? So I was, within that first 24, I would say 12 hours, I was already asking myself the questions that I needed to ask. Because prior to that point, I was like, okay, this is my homie right here. I want to look good in front of my homies, in front of, this girl I'm trying to impress, and all of that sort of stuff. And I would go against what at my core I felt was the right thing to do, just to achieve something I felt I needed to achieve, which was the friendship of certain people in my life, and in reality, I wasn't earning that friendship. In reality, those friends, I say friends in quotes because as soon as I was incarcerated, they were pretty much falling off from my initial incarceration, so they weren't truly friends. We like to say in the youth diversion program, friends will never put you in harm's way. So if you and I are friends, and just throwing this out there, and you want to go to a certain area which I know is the wrong place to go, and you want to hang out with the wrong people, I'm going to say, no, that's not cool. I'm going to try my best to pull you out of that situation. That is the definition of friend that I today rely upon, or I view as a true friend. But there was never a moment in juvenile hall, from the start of my incarceration where I felt that I would never change. The opposite is true. From those very first moments, I was like, man, I have to change. And I kind of knew because I grew up all right. I had a mother and father. I grew up pretty good in Union City, middle-class community. So I had a lot of privileges that a lot of people don't have. So I knew the right things to do. I just didn't have the strength within myself to go and do those things. So when the time came to really decide to make a decision and take ownership over my life, I had a decent foundation from which to draw from. And then from there, it was just gaining the strength to further expand those parameters and really become who it is I wanted to become, through different programs I had in juvenile hall and that sort of thing. Just one question, please. No, just.
Did you write
before I was incarcerated, no.
I'm curious, because the way that you were talking about how powerful like this writing here was, do you think that for yourself or for others that this kind of writing, like programs, would help people find the kind of clarity that you found once you're incarcerated, but before that?
Oh, without a doubt. I believe that, especially for people who were or are introverted like I was the type of person, I didn't express myself emotionally. I just kept everything in. And this is going back to as far back as I can remember. That was part of my downfall as well, because the hurts that I had, the needs that I felt I wanted, the wants that I had weren't hardly ever expressed. So I went through the different avenues that I spoke of earlier to achieve the results I felt that I needed in my head. But I feel writing, whether you're extroverted or introverted, writing can only improve how you feel about yourself and your projection to others and being able to learn about yourself. I think it's fantastic because it's kind of like a mirror. You write something, especially when you proof your stuff, when you really reflect on it, and I might write something here in the next 2 hours and then look at it later and say, wow, you know what? First of all, that says something about me. It might reveal some truths about how I feel that I didn't necessarily, I wasn't necessarily cognizant of at the time, but it just came out in paper. And reflecting on it, as I've done many times, not just in the beat, but in my letters to loved ones and pen pals and all that sort of stuff, it gave me some perspective on life. Your second question?
That was my two.
Okay.
So, like, what did your parents think about it? Like,
What did they feel about the situation? That was one of the biggest lessons I learned in the fact that the people who I tried to impress the most, who I tried to get closest to, were essentially my enemies in a sense. And this I learned later on. And the people who I was pushing away, my parents, my loved ones, they were my best friends. And I learned that only in this toughest point of my life. Within that same day, that same 12 hours, I believe, only people that came to my aid were my parents. I remember being in that lockup cell and the door just opening all of a sudden. I'm looking, my mother and father are standing right there. And I think that was one of the first really stark reminders that, you know what, I've been pushing these people away. In a sense, you know how when you're a teenager, you get to be 15, 16, 17, you start wanting to just really do your own thing. Well, I took that about 100 notches up, and basically I was a tenant in my parents' house. I did my own thing, didn't follow their rules, and I lived in the house basically. But that first day of juvenile hall taught me so many things, and one of the things is what you're alluding to, in that were they in my corner? Did they forgive me? I think was your specific question. Absolutely. Over time, I don't think they ever held it against me. I think they held it against themselves more than anything. Especially as time passed, as we began to talk about our relationship with one another, as we began to communicate, which we never did on a really healthy level. Communication was non-existent in my home. Everything was superficial, on the surface. How are you doing? Oh, I'm cool. I'm out now. I'm going to the mall. I'm going to whatever. That was pretty much the extent. And as they would try to pry into my life, I'm like, man, shut my door. I'm cool. I know a lot of you could probably relate to that. I won't ask you to hold your hands up or anything like that. But does that answer your question a little bit? Okay.
I think you'll also see, just flipping through again, a reoccurring theme is longing for my mom. reconnecting, and how, again, I think our young people, our writers, treat their so-called friends like royalty, and then they treat their parents like, the gutter. And then they wake up, and lo and behold, parents are still standing in your corner, regardless. And given the beats like on social media, right, like on Facebook and whatnot, I'm getting so many letters and messages from parents, from mothers who want to share, and predominantly mothers, who want to share their story as well and their journey. And I'm slowly integrating them into the magazine, and I'd like to do more work with parents, because parents have incredible, painful stories as well. Seeing your child shackled and chained, taking the bus 5-6 hours to the prison or wherever the institution one's loved one is at, and their own struggles to make ends meet to visit their child on the verge of homelessness. I can't tell you how many mothers I've read who are on the verge of homelessness because of their child going to all their court dates and all their visits and not having a lot of support either. It's really, interesting and sad, painful, but important stories, right, that need to be heard.
Can I speak to that, extend my answer a little bit on what you were asking about? Okay. I was just going to say that, David started talking about mothers, and I can't go through a mother conversation without talking about my mom, especially since it's Mother's Day in 2 days. But on average, over the last 23 years, my mom has, wherever I was in the state, and I've been at different youth authorities, different lockups, prisons, what have you, my mom has probably gotten up early in the morning, at least on average twice a month, to drive X number of miles, X number of hours, to wait in line X number of hours, to visit me for the most 2 hours, and then do the same thing on the way back home. And there are many mothers that do the same thing. Fathers as well. I don't want to leave out fathers. And, it's one of the things I'm very thankful for, is how steadfast my family has been there for me, throughout all these years. Any other two-part questions? Three-part questions?
The beat's been, yeah.
I would say, what would you say that you needed the most when you were 17? Like, I know that you said that you needed a way to express yourself. And how do you think that we could create that in schools or in our society for people our age, so that we don't get caught up or don't make similar mistakes?
Okay.
What would you say that we need, or what would you say that you needed the most when you're that age?
As you were asking that question, man, one thing just popped in my mind was, you need a safe place. You need safe ears. You need people you can trust. Too often, I think we begin to hear what somebody says, and we just put them down, push them away, or even ridicule them as a result of their feelings, whether they be truthful or not. That isn't the best way to express that. For instance, when I was young, I had feelings. If I were to share those feelings with my mom, whether they were relevant, whether they were truthful, it was truth to me because I was living the experience. So I needed safe ears. And as much as my parents loved me, and I knew that at my core, I didn't feel like I could really lean on them in that way to say, you know what, I feel like I'm the outsider. I feel like I need help with this situation. I feel like I don't have any friends in the world. Whatever the case may be, I didn't feel safe in that sense. So, you know what, I made my own safe place. And by doing so, it wasn't so safe for other people, because I was doing foolish things, and I was expressing myself in foolish ways, trying to achieve foolish results. But it was my reality. So I think off the top, what we need is a safe place for which, your friend, your family member, whoever it is, can come to you in confidence and say, you know what, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm feeling, knowing that you're not going to turn around, you know, what that person said to me and start texting it, start blasting them on Facebook, whatever the case may be. They need to feel safe. Does that answer your question? Okay.
You also talked about how, both of you talked about how vital it was to have those people who are incarcerated and young people coming together to talk like how we're talking right now. And how would you say like the beat is doing that? And how would you say that that in the future, like you guys start having schools or like, because I think this has been really valuable for us and for me personally.
Great.
And so yeah, I was just wondering.
So, how is the beat, let me make sure I understand your question, how's the beat like impacting young people within the hall, or or,
I think both. I think,
Mhm.
like, because you talked about how talking with young people, you were both learning and
Right.
teaching.
Right?
So I would say that, like, can you do this more? I don't know if it's like a,
Can I do this more in the community, like?
yeah, I would, like, I'm sure you probably do it a lot.
Yes, and it needs to be more, I think there needs to be more outlets in the community for programs such as the Beat Within. Young people ask me all the time, how can they stay connected? How can they keep writing? Again, I think it's about the relationships. So I'll say, we go into juvenile hall. I'll say there's lots of programs that go into juvenile hall, but then again, there's not a lot of people that go into juvenile. So we're right there in the front lines building this amazing relationship. And then sadly, for many, it ends when they leave juvenile hall, and you never see that young person again unless they're strong enough to take the initiative. And a lot of times, a lot of young people aren't strong enough to do that, or they just get caught up in freedom, which is real. But we're asked constantly to bring our work into the community. We're also asked from private high schools, asked to come and lead writing workshops, and they asked if they can be published in the Beat Within. I've done that, and their stories are just as powerful. Your stories are just as powerful and would make an impact to these readers. If it's Kevin reading it in Folsom, San Quentin, or a kid that's in a maximum security unit in San Jose, let alone Alameda County, will learn from you and will be touched by you, and maybe hopefully inspired. You know, we don't have a lot of time, and one thing I wanted to do, maybe we can do this down the road, I don't know, or another session, but 2 years ago, we started writing workshops with juvenile lifers over in San Quentin. And doing the same writing workshops we do with the young people in the hall, same writing workshops we do with whoever wants to work with the Beat Within. And their writing is so powerful, and it was such a success that I'm there once a month leading these groups, and there's about 40 to 50 men that participate. And you'll find their writings in the back page here. But what I've learned, what I've been wanting to do with their writings, I wanted to give these men quick feedback on it. I guess instant feedback. Sure, it's nice to get a piece in the magazine and read an amazing piece of writing. But what I wanted to do, and we started calling this thing called On the Same Page. I would give you all writings, and you respond to their writings, and then I would be able to bring it back to them. And I've done this again for the last 6 months now, and the gratification from the men inside to you all, to us in the free world, learning about who these men are, and reading their journeys and sharing it's a win-win for all of us. There's more than just the Latino gangster or the whatever, or the murderer, or the guy that got 60 years of life. Man, that guy that has 60 years of life is really like doing some great things out there and wants to do more, and is aiming to get home, and that says a lot to us. And that they do. Yeah.
Say something that they may not have time to do that, but I could always have these guys do that response and then.
That would be great. Great, Amy. Thank you. Great. So we can do that. And I think I actually mentioned it to the men through a phone conversation I had with Miguel. And he's one of our leading workshop facilitators over in San Quentin. And he's got like 45 to life. Similar story to Kevin in a sense. And he was quite thrilled because he was telling me about how rewarding it is to get feedback from young people on their writing. So I'm excited that Amy's willing to do that. Thank you. I'm going to say 95% of those, 97 are all incarcerated. As young as 11 to as old as possibly a 70-year-old man. like I said, the back pages are devoted to the elders. And like even in our juvenile life or workshops, I have a 65-year-old man who was sentenced, to life in prison at 16, 17 years old. And here he is 60, 50 years later because of the crime he committed as a teenager.
Yeah, question.
You guys work with women incarcerated?
Yeah, there's always a section within every juvenile hall. Everybody's eligible to participate in the Be Within writing workshops. And, there's always a unit that's devoted to the young women. There's probably 85% of them are males, but then the 15 to 20% are young women.
I saw a lot of eyebrows go up when Dave was talking about, somebody having 60 to life for a crime they committed as a juvenile and they've been incarcerated 40, 50 years. Is that kind of shocking? Yeah.
When you were in prison, do you think that people that you, self-included, do you think that the people there deserve to be in prison?
Let me speak to myself first. Whether or not I felt I deserved to be in prison, absolutely. I deserve far worse, probably, for having taken a life, for having, done the things I did, robbing, stealing, whatever. So I feel incredibly blessed, incredibly grateful to have had an opportunity for this, I call it kind of a season of redemption, this chance to be free again, because this was not a guarantee. I had to, and people like me had to prove that they've changed, that they aren't going to be a burden on the society or a terror on the society like they once were. They had to prove that, and sometimes prove it time and time again before they got their shot. Some people have, many people have not got their shot yet, for whatever reason. As far as my friends and other people who are still incarcerated, whether or not I feel they deserve to be in there, I feel the same way about them that I do about myself, that, if they've committed crimes, there's a penalty for that. We live in a society where, we're judged by what we do. So, but I also believe in redemption. I believe in second chances. And,
So when you were sentenced as a juvenile, how many years were you sentenced?
29 to life.
And when you heard that as an 18-year-old or whatever age you were, did you ever think you were going to get out? Or did it this is my life, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life?
In these next few minutes, I know we're up against the clock here, but my lawyer presented that to me right in the months leading up to me taking a plea deal. I didn't go to trial. My plea deal, what I accepted, was 29 years to life at 18 years old. And when he first presented that to me, I had a fabulous lawyer. We're still friends to this day. But at the time, imagine yourselves being in a situation where somebody says, you know what, this is really a good deal. You're going to be out before you reach my age. You'll be about 38, 39 years old. That's a good deal. I'm like, in my mind, I don't know what he saw in my expression, but in my mind, I'm like, are you crazy? I'm like 18 years old and somebody's telling me I'm going to spend the next 20 years of my life in prison. It was a shock in my mind, but you know what? I feel very grateful that I did accept that, because it could have been much worse for me. I could have received a sentence where basically said, you'll never get out of prison again. So I had an opportunity that was presented to me, and I took it. I was guilty of sin, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That was clear cut. So that was another huge moment in my maturation process, is being able to see things for what they are and not for what I want them to be, and deal with that in a constructive way, and not lash out or do whatever, not harm myself, but really deal with that situation. Because there was a time shortly before that where I told my lawyer, you know what, like David said earlier, it's ride or die. We're gonna take this all the way, and I'll get whatever punishment they give me, or they're gonna let me walk out of here. There's no middle ground there. And I remember telling myself that, basically. That we're taking this all the way because I don't wanna serve any time. This is enough time for me right here. I've only been in jail like a year at that point, but it was me in that process of learning how to accept what I had done and the consequences of that.
I want to thank you all this afternoon. It's really great hanging out with you.
Hope we were able to answer all the questions. I think you over here, did you have your hand raised? No? No, okay. I thought you had your hand.
You want to tell them what that is?
Yeah. This is a trifold brochure, which was created
2 minutes.
for the youth diversion program, which I was a part of in Folsom State Prison. It was basically what we handed kids at the end of the day after our 8 hours with them was over. And I know this is 2 pieces of paper. It's supposed to be 1 page, but it's a snapshot into our world and has a little bit about our mission, a message to the kids. And all these quotes right here on the inside are from people like myself who are in the program and some past guys who wanted to leave the kids with some little nugget of worth, of value that maybe they could read later on and be able to reflect on. So if you guys want these, they're here for you. Hope it's something you guys might be able to reflect on. Maybe your teacher will be able to print them out for you in color someday. Okay. But the content is what really matters, so.
And, yeah. And the magazines are yours if you like to keep them. And if you're wondering why there's no staples in them, because staples are seen as contraband.
Yeah.
So, that's why they're folded. And they're treated like gold within those walls. So, enjoy it. And, again, we really appreciate your time this afternoon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.